bow like this and chop it right in half. I'm dead in the water right now. This took some serious doing. Here we go. And really just trying to get some exercise in on this guy. Just kind of pulling repeatedly to 18 inches here. 18 is about 38 pounds. 20 is about 43 pounds. That's about 5 pounds picked up weight right there. From 20, which is running right around 43, to 22 inches, we're getting to about 49. Another 6 pounds picked up, so that's about 3 pounds per inch. We're going to go ahead and run this out to 24. Always paying attention to the bend and the arc on those limbs, of course. At 24 inches, we are running right at 55. So another 5 pounds gained in those 2 inches from 22 to 24. At 26 inches, 61 pounds. All right, to start the process of being prepared to put in our sleeve and socket here, we have to get one edge of our blank completely trued up and flat so that it doesn't rock at all on a flat surface, and then will allow us to clamp it into our jig while putting in the while applying the grip. So we're going to put a fiberglass sleeve on here. This is what we need right here. Sitting perfectly flat with no rock whatsoever. This makes sure that we can get it into our jig and wrap it without fear of our tips becoming misaligned. Time to start working out the sleeve portion of our build here. I have marked out the center of my grip space right here, and really want to maximize this space that I have going on, and mark the center as a little bit of a learning thing from a previously built bow where I put too much space into the socket piece and not enough on the sleeve. So I go for dead center now, and still relegate just a little extra to the bottom half. So our sleeve is going to be every bit of this right here, up to the angle, right? And then this much hanging on to the other side of the sleeve. So it needs to be strong on both sides of this joint. Going to go ahead and cut this out on the bandsaw. It's stripped where it has to tension the wheel to run the blade to make the bandsaw work, and I am right now sunk. This is so much better when I'm cutting just wood. The process always looks so rough to start with really kind of rough edges cut into the tenon and mortise pieces here. Of course, there's a lot of work yet to be done as far as smoothing them out and getting a taper just the slightest bit taper on the bottom piece here, so that it slides in and out of the joint. But guys, this is always the way it looks to get started. It only makes sense it would start freaking raining as soon as I get everything else set up. But we're going for it anyway. So here's our kind of rounded off finished stuff. So now this is the top limb, which means that the actual shape of the tenon piece, or the tenon piece here, doesn't matter all that much, because this is not going to move from the epoxy sleeve, so we do not need it to come apart. This one, on the other hand, has to be just right. It has to be getting thinner all the time in every direction. If for any reason, or if there's any spot that bulges in any way, it'll get stuck in the joint and not come out. Now, we can take a calipers to this and measure for thickness. I've kind of lucked out in that the way that we laminated this together, you can kind of see the layers. So this is almost like growth rings on the belly of your bow, where you can tell it's getting thinner. I mean, visually you can see that it's getting thinner, but ultimately you should be able to feel it just like you would feel the taper on a self bow, where your fingers can tell you everything you need to know as far as if there's any bumps or hills or valleys or anything that are going to cause this to stick in the sleeve. For this work, guys, I'm going to be using my handy file. We're just going to go around the entire side of this thing, or all sides. And just get it tapering in all directions. All right, out of that, everything in here is running perfect, absolutely perfect. And I haven't even taken a calipers to it. I mean, it's upside down. Let's do it like this. At the base, 8.86, 0.84, 0.82, 0.79, 0.77, 0.75. So 1.594, 571, 566, 562, 556. Everything tapers, and that's the first time I put calipers on that. Like, you don't need calipers. You just need to be able to feel that it is in fact getting thinner, and your fingers can measure a gap better than any tool on earth. All right, guys, I'm gonna put some overlays here just coming out of the grip, and I have degreased all my parts here. And the way this is going to look is just like this: a little more zebra wood and core material, that hackberry, and it's got just a taper right down here, so that when I wrap, it'll wrap right over top, and it'll just become a overlay coming out of the grip. And I've got the same thing going on for the bottom limb here. So we're going to get these epoxied on. Everything has been degreased with acetone. Scuffed up the fiberglass, sanded it up, you know, to scuff it so that the epoxy would stick. And of course, did the same with all the overlay pieces. Okay, I've got my overlays down, and now the question is how to clamp them. And I love stretch wrap just for this purpose. We can go very gently into this right here, and then once we're covered, just really apply the stretch to the stretch wrap and get a nice tight hold that can be manipulated from underneath the plastic. We're all ready to go. Quick word of caution when it comes to putting your overlays on. So this is an order of operations thing, guys. Put them on prior to doing all of this work, and you'll save yourself a lot of hassle. One other thing that I have done here, I have gone through and really put like a finish sanding on the operable tenon of our takedown. So this is going to be the tenon that goes into the sleeve, our bottom limb. The other thing I have done, and you can probably just see it, is I have melted some paraffin wax all in there, coated it in paraffin, melted it in. It's a penetrating type finish, right, that is waterproof and creates a really smooth surface here. Not doing it as a releasing agent. We'll still put some Vaseline on here to act as a releasing agent, but it'll be a barrier on that Vaseline from getting into the finish here. It will also be kind of a longevity type of finish as well. It won't swell the wood. It makes it very smooth and waterproof, all of those things. So this tenon has to, for all intents and purposes, be completely done before we start this process. You cannot sand, shape, do anything to this without affecting the grip of the bow from this point forward. Do not forget to get some release agent up here on the neck or on the collars of this whole thing. We're also going to put some release agent on the just the tip tenon of this portion here, where the two surfaces touch, so we don't have any issues there. So you can see the two halves of that joint there, and that there's no light coming through anywhere in that joint, so they're together tight. Clamped into the jig, ready to go. You can see the alignment here. Draped over the limbs, of course, are pieces of fiberglass fabric, 1 inch wide. And then here on the workbench, I've got my clear epoxy resin. Got a cup to mix it in with just a little bit of black aniline dye in there, and a little bit goes a real long way on the aniline dyes. I have just a toilet flange here that I keep this in to keep it from falling over, so that's what that's all about. 1 inch chip brush and then a mixing stick. That's really all we need to get this process going. All right, here's our process. I've got equal measures of our epoxy resin separated out into 2 different cups so that I can make sure the measurement is correct, get them going, and we're all set. So guys, everything you see here, from the brush, the gloves, to the epoxy, to the fiberglass, all of that, I'll put a link in the description where you can get basically the whole kit in one-stop shop on my Amazon. I have an Amazon link for all of this stuff that I picked up. The nice thing about the epoxy resin, unlike any other resins that I've done in the past, which were abject failures, but epoxy, when I started using the epoxy, it lengthened the work time quite a bit. It's kind of like the difference between using PVA glue and EA40 when it comes time to getting all the pieces and parts put together and having drying times that are going, or working times rather, that are going to allow you to do the job without being in a rush. And I feel like in what we do, that is a very important or advantageous quality to have in your adhesives. Here we go. Find it a good practice to just get my surface coated here, so I don't have to worry about that initial adhesion. And notice that I'm only worried about the one side here, because obviously in the end result we're not worried about it sticking to the bottom side here. What we're going to do is crumple up, and these are cut into about 30 or 40 inch lengths, and I like to keep the tips or the edges, ends, whatever, free from the epoxy. And we're gonna dunk the remainder of it here. This is gonna get real messy real quick, which is why I have this set somewhere where it's not going to fall over. And by having pre-coated this here, I don't have to worry too much about my very first section going down. And of course, once you pick a direction to wrap everything, you gotta stick with it. So we're going to be wrapping over top here from the front side to the back. Notice how this little string starts coming out. You want to be careful with those. You don't want to tug on it. Obviously, it's like pulling on a sweater with a loose string. It all just comes unraveled. So be careful not to do that. Should it start unraveling on you, the last thing you want to do is panic about it. Just work with it. It's like anything, just work with it. Don't let it keep you from getting the job done. And that's why we keep our lengths short and don't do it all in one run. So that when you get those little things going on, it doesn't derail the project. All right, so that had very little impact on what's going on here. Now, it should be looking pretty translucent. Of course, right up to my last wraps here. And so I want to make sure that I got good penetration with the epoxy. I'm going to brush on a little extra here. Make sure everything's good. All right. And then, guys, we are going to just continually repeat this process and build up and build up and build up the thickness on this. And you can see that this is just a slimy mess right here. Like I said, you can just use the residual from your gloves to almost get the next one all ready to go. And not only does it work in terms of the residual in your gloves, but all of the residual on the work surface itself. So you can see it just working through here. Again, the idea is to get that translucent appearance here, because you do not want this going on dry. It's got to be permeated by that epoxy. I'm getting like really kind of into the gap up here on the top side. So this is my bottom limb down here. I'm wanting to have enough up in here, you know, to support cut out shelf or whatever we choose to do. Okay. Notice a string trying to interrupt activity here. Just don't allow it. It actually unraveled quite a bit. You can see how much of that's just stringy right there. But it'll all lay down in that epoxy in the end. All right. And you can kind of see how the wraps have like exceeded how much we have taken out in terms of hardwood material. So we have put back at least the girth of the build prior to taking it down for a sleeve. And I'm really feeling pretty good about this particular one. Something I did off screen that I didn't elaborate on was like folding over the strip as I was working into these edges right here. So kind of doubling it over and going double so that it got real thick right to that last little bit. And then I could flatten it back out and come back out into the main field of wraps to give it a good straight appearance when it's finished, without it being, you know, tapering so much on both ends. Yeah, so at this point, we just let it dry. We're more like cure. So, guys, that's a wrap for the time being. We'll crack this thing open a couple days.